Hey, welcome back. I want to make this video to address a question that I received regarding the Shuto. And I know I've talked about this before in some of my other videos, but I really wanted to specifically address this. Uh, the question that came up was that this person was asking that if the Shuto, which by the way, Shuto, shu meaning hand, to meaning sword, so Shuto, hand, sword, right? But this person was asking that they said they keep seeing references to it being like a hatchet. And they said, so what is it? Is it a hatchet? Is it a sword? Am I supposed to chop somebody with it or slice somebody or stab somebody? And, my answer was like, yes. But honestly, I want to take a second and just talk about my thoughts or my understanding of the significance of the analogy to a hatchet. Um, I grew up in rural Northern California where it was perfectly normal as a young man growing up for me to go out and be the one to chop wood. I was always having to chop wood, especially when it's cold out and you got to do it because you need that wood to come in the house and dry and stuff. So you always had to have this supply of wood and then different kinds of wood. There was heavy wood and light wood and stuff. But learning how to use different kinds of axes and hatchets was important when I was a kid. And the reason that I'm saying this is that I was taught the dynamics of how to use an axe or a hatchet, not based so much on strength but on technique. And there's a really good reason why that fits nicely with the use of the term hatchet as far as your use of the shuto. So uh, so let me just describe that. So when you're using an axe is basically a handle with a heavy chopping metal head on it. And it's just a wedge shaped piece of metal and it's designed to chop into the wood using the centrifugal force with the weight of that axe head. And the way that you properly swing an axe is to create force by use of the body first. And it creates a wave that goes down through your arm or arms into the handle and down to the axe head. So the axe head strikes last. But so much force goes into that axe head that the weight of the axe head itself is multiplied 10 times, 20, it could be 20 times. You can cut all the way through a big section of wood with an axe head that is only this big if you do it right with the right technique and it has the right force behind it. So the reason why this is important when understanding the shuto is the way you use your shuto, or at least one way. There are many ways, but in the beginning, what I consider in my school, what I teach as kihon, what I teach as the basic or the beginning, is to how to use the body to create that same wave and to relax the arm and to use the elbow, articulate the elbow to create that as it transfers down to the end to your hand. There's so much centrifugal force built up that when it hits, it actually hits with multiplied force. And that's the part I think that I oftentimes see missed, that people try to use their muscular strength to drive the axe head or drive their shuto through. And the part that really frustrates me is to see shuto used as a push where there is no push. It's an impact weapon. It's designed to impact the target and send waves of force through the target that's going to create fractures and 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 disruption through the target. So in the case of hitting like the side of the neck, you're not just affecting the vagus nerve or the muscle tissue, you're actually attacking the spinal cord through the neck. So the way you strike, if you strike with the correct force, it should go through all of this tissue, not the physicalness of the hand, but the amount of force generated should blast through and create a disruptive wave of energy that also creates fractures in the spine. So, and that goes for any body part. That the Shuto itself has to be a transfer of power through your body into theirs. And that can only be done through a relaxed but also precise dynamic of the body, of the bones of the body. So the tissues of the body start the motion. That's what starts the motion. But then the transfer of it is in the physicalness, the raw meat and bone of the body is 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 the vessel that carries that energy that's created. And so the way you would do that with the body is that you would start this motion and how it just transfers out in to the target. So you can see how it just like a wave just comes out through. This is why it is very important that the structure of the wrist and the hand is set a certain way. And the part that you strike with has to be very precise because the likelihood of you damaging yourself can be very high if you put a lot of power into this, not muscle, but power in terms of firing that wave of energy through the body to drive that in. There's so much impact that ends up on the end of this that if you don't have this just right, the alignment of the wrist, has to be just right. You don't want to push this out and fracture these bones or have this off alignment. This has to be solid. You look at that picture of Takamatsu Soke when he's striking that tabletop, and you see that it's perfectly flat. And even Ishizuka Soke talks about this, that this is flat. It's flat for a reason. And the other part too is the fingers, that you want to make sure that this thumb is hinging over this finger so that you support this part of the hand as well. And you're striking with this right here. Now, why this is not really like a sword, because a sword dynamic has an arc to it that goes through the target. It slices through. That's why the katana is shaped the way it's shaped. This is a flat object. If you use the same dynamic as the sword here and you strike and drag through the target, guess what's going to receive all of that resistance on the return force? It's going to be those fingers, and those fingers are going to break. So when you hit it, has to be enough to knock something away, but not like that where it's going to slice through and you break those fingers. And you want to have the structure of the hand with the thumb over here to support so that these bones condense together, because these are all independent bones that float. So you want to reduce that floatiness of it and have those bones be structurally held together so that this is as solid as it possibly can be. And incidentally, the way that I teach this is that if you look at the alignment of your Shuto, that these fingers line up with this hand here in such a way that these knuckles coming out, this creates a straight line down these bones, and these come out. It's the same as if you were doing this fist, Shikanken, as well as holding a sword. It's the same, this knuckle alignment. So all you're really doing here is just extending these knuckles. It's also the same if you do Boshiken, right? Or Shito. But the idea is that it's designed like that for a reason. And also the way you even block, how you do your Joranuke. How is your hand positioned? It's positioned like this, right? This is all the same. Everything is the same. But the dynamic of the Shuto is you don't want to stress here. So you don't want to come all the way back like this and bring that shoulder forward where now you're stressing your rotator cuff. But the body starts the motion. It's not this wide arcing thing either. This is slow and big, and this opening right here is where everything can be stopped. This does nothing as well. I don't want to strike my target with my body continuing to come forward because the return force on here is going to force this back, and it's going to force this, which is trying to flex, and the flexing with this pressure is going to tear your rotator cuff. So I want to make sure that this extends out. So the end of that strike happens at the extension. And the movement is also really important that if you're starting in Kamae with your hand here and you're going to do the Shuto from here, that it starts, that you create this motion. Even if it's starting from here, it still has this kind of circular motion to it. It's not just like that. It actually has this rolling motion. So that's kihon in my class. That's how I was taught as kihon. Some people train a little differently, but I can tell you from my own knowledge of anatomy and sports injuries and things like that um, that there are some very specific things you want to be careful about. Don't overextend the shoulders. Make sure you're not snapping the elbow, but not, you don't keep it tucked in either. The arm is extended, but it also has a little bit of give to it. And also the structure of the wrist, the hand, the fingers, all are solid and aligned correctly to support the impact force that you're going to generate. And force is done through motion. Force is not done through muscle. Muscle is what creates the motion, but the force has to travel through a relaxed uh, physicalness of the body versus a tense physicalness of the body. This is not a stick. This is like a chain with a wrecking ball. That's the analogy that I use in class when I teach my students. But the axe analogy, I think, is also very practical. It makes a lot of sense that you're projecting out to this heavy axe head, which is going to be your hand in this case. So if you think about how that is, and how you would swing an axe to generate the most force into that axe head, it makes sense. It makes sense. And that type of way of generating force also applies to the use of weapons as well. So, but I'm not going to get into that. I just wanted to throw this out to talk about the use of the shuto as we do it in class, and and things to be careful about, and how you can maximize your practice on this. So I hope you find this useful and helpful. Throw me some comments. Let me know what you think. Feel free to share. And definitely subscribe to my channel. I need more subscribers, so I'll continue to keep putting content out, and hopefully this is valuable to you. And if it is, please let me know. So as I always say, stay happy, stay healthy, and no matter what, keep training.